Good morning. My name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies on the 30th of September for this week's Monday's Musings. And I'm laughing to myself because I really got caught up in a moment then of what angle to best take to have the best appearance on the screen. And those that know me know that that's somewhat out of character, but actually it felt really amusing to recognize it didn't matter. It didn't matter what angle I took in this video. It didn't matter what direction I faced. There was always something I didn't like the look of. So whether it's the extra bit of skin under my chin, or my hair, or whatever, the double chin. And this week that feels really quite poignant, that it doesn't matter what angle we take. There's always going to be something that this week in particular we may not like the look of, because it's an invitation to really go within. What is it we are avoiding looking at? When I picked the cards for today, the images that I picked are the Tarot of the New Vision, and there was a real resistance there. I didn't want to use the New Vision. I didn't want to use a different way of seeing things. I wanted to be very almost rigid in how I perceived things, and I'm not here to tell anyone what to do and what not to do. What I am here to suggest this week, however, is that we perhaps are encouraged to open ourselves up to our own vision, because the way that we see things comes from where we're at. Okay, so I know that my insecurities, based on whatever angle I want to look at, and my insecurities, this week we do have that opportunity. Why? Because the other set of cards that I did actually pick, which I'm still very undecided to work with, which is a concern of my own as well, is the Priestess of Light Oracle. Acknowledging that energy as well, acknowledging what is trying to come through. If we can get over or through or beyond, however you want to look at it, it really doesn't matter how you look at it. If we can work through whatever is coming up for us this week, regardless of the angle that we take, whether that's a healing angle, whether that's a collective angle, whether that's an individual angle, a work-based angle, a relationship-based angle, what's really going on here as we lead into the eclipse is the fact that we are being encouraged to see the bigger picture of who we are and our ability to witness and hold space. The eclipse is in the sign of Libra. There's a lot going on about mini moons and lots of energies coming in, and there's, even myself this week, my ears are quite painful. I have to keep going deep within in order to avoid sharp, almost like daggers coming into my ears. And I'm acutely aware the noise outside is almost stabbing what I'm able to hear. And as I say that, I can feel it in my third eye as well, and a lot of congestion around the head. And this week, the guidance is to, I'm looking at the Ten of Wands here, but this week, the guidance is to be very aware of the information that we are taking on board, the impact that it's having on our body, the angles that we are choosing to see, to perhaps opening our perspective beyond what we think we know. And there is an emphasis there on what we think we know. It doesn't matter how educated we are, it doesn't matter what guides we're connected to, it doesn't matter what experience we've had in our life, there's always more. There's always more. Now, that isn't to initiate within us a feeling of not knowing enough or not being enough, but an inspiration. So this week we can either use the different angles that we see as an inspiring way to look at things that we may have not recognized we are holding on to, like insecurities, or we can look at it as a way to not be enough, to stand in that. So why, again, underneath it's our ability to hold space as we go into the eclipse. And it feels very important to get firm and focused as we go into the eclipse, not to create knee-jerk reactions, not to make any hasty decisions before the eclipse. Eclipses are a time of darkness, right? So we don't see the whole picture. Not to get too caught up in the things that are there to distract us, whether we've initiated them or whatever is initiating them. Not to get caught up in what's being initiated and why, but to remain focused on where we are and some of the necessary truths that need to come to light to be seen, so that we can acknowledge our ability to observe ourselves and what is going on, or not, as the case may be. There isn't any judgment there. It is an opportunity to be able to hold space for ourselves so that we can open ourselves up to experiences beyond our own understanding. Now, that does mean that does come with potential galactic and higher energy forces this week. I'm aware that my ears as well are being cleared for a upgrade, if you will, or a download, or however you want to see that. And that is the bit where there's resistance. I can only speak for myself, and that feels quite important this week, that we can only speak for our own experiences. But there feels as if there's almost a resistance there to recognizing our light. We can talk about the many different ways and means and patriarchies and systems out there that are dialing down our light, our power, whatever, but how often do we include ourselves in that? This week, that is going to come to the surface, that is going to come to the front. I have a huge resistance to using the Priestess of Light Oracle, and yet here I am talking about light and reading the tarot cards. So it's a wonderful opportunity to regain focus, to be aware of what is going on, to see where we may not be able to see our own potential, to look at why we may be deliberately choosing to close ourselves off to that, to hold space for any wounds that are associated with that, and to recognize we're already doing it anyway. As we hone into the fact that the veil is lifting, not just between us and our ancestors as we're going into the October and the portal and the eclipse, but between how we see ourselves and our own truth this week. So, is there anything else to add on that? There can be a great peace in acknowledging that we are enough. And that underneath it all is the opportunity this week to really look at where we may have wounds with that, to really look at where we may have been seeking external substances, people, situations, relationships that haven't always supported our potential, rather our wounding. This week it is to do with relationships, it is to do with how imbalanced they are in a life as well, but that is going to take a real, true, honest, vulnerable look at where we may see ourselves and what we're actually capable of. So an example, I have all these ideas to start the Facebook group back up that I used to do. My internet is crap. I have all these ideas of offering services from home, and you know, the environment that I find myself in at the moment isn't up to that potential. I can get really caught up in the whirlwind of that, like we all can this week, and focusing on all the things that we can't do, or we can prepare for the time when we can and acknowledge what actually needs to change, which for me is my home space. And there are things in, and then we can see that there are things in the process of being sorted to rectify that. I'm hearing the analogy, we can't run before we walk. What I'm actually seeing is people that don't even want to stand up and try and walk because of falling over previously. And I can relate and I can understand with empathy. So it is more about what do we need to be able to witness rejection. That's what's really coming to the light this week. Rejection, fear of rejection, trauma of rejection, experiences of rejection. Not wanting to cause that for others, but also not wanting to feel that ourselves. Because when we cause something for someone else, we generally feel it too. So being aware of that. What are we actually feeling this week? Is it something being directed to us or something that we may have initiated? And again, there isn't actually any judgment there. So this morning I had a real human temper tantrum. And that's the other thing, acknowledging that that's okay. This morning I had a real human temper tantrum, and I sat with it and I felt into it and leaned into it without this need to fix it or change it or even give it other names like sacred rage. All of our emotions are sacred. Everything we feel has the potential to be sacred in how we choose to feel it. It's energy in motion. Yeah, it's our stories coming to surface to be transmuted. And that is the resistance this week, whether or not we choose to transmute something. Or rather how we choose to transmute it, and being so finely aware of that. So when we talk about sacred rage, what we're saying is that rage can only be expressed because we now see it as sacred. It now has a purpose. It now has an intention behind it. Emotions are energy in motion. When we start to give them too many stories, even well-meaning ones, We're slowing down that natural movement. It is just an expression of who you are. Put it into something. Sing, dance, write, move, sit with it, witness it. Look at your ability. The eclipse that's coming up is in Libra, which is the Justice card in the tarot. Look at your ability to witness the whole story and hold court for yourself as well this week. There was something I was going to share on that and it's completely gone out of my mind. I'm sure it will come back if need be, but there also needs to be some space for that. So there are some things that almost feel as if they've gone and we're grappling, trying to get them to come back. It's not about ignoring them. Just allow space. Allow space for transformation to occur. That's what we do when we witness, right? When we witness, it's not about changing something. That's a beautiful side effect sometimes, not always. But when we're witnessing, we're just allowing space for a natural transition. And that is what is occurring this week. We may be aware of cycles, of moons within moons, of lots of different things going on. But what's actually occurring is a natural turn of the seasons within us, a natural transformation, which brings me on to the final thing, the avoidance of that. I was going to talk about the violet ray today, and I was going to talk about alchemy and transformation because my eyes were really drawn to use those crystals today. And I felt a great resistance, and that was actually a collective resistance to not just the violet ray, not just the ease and grace of transformation that is actually available, but transformation itself. How often do we want change, but not either A, know what that looks like, or worse, know what that looks like, claim to want it, but be frightened of it, be afraid of it, resist it. Now, we may not know we're doing that. And this week, it's really great to look at any secondary gains we may have by staying in the situation that we're in. So I can definitely see that if my home life doesn't change, there's things I can't do. And much as I want to do those things, there is part of me that would benefit from not doing those things as well. So being aware of that and just witnessing. Awareness is the biggest transformation that we have. Self-awareness, knowing that we're doing something. You know, there's no good knowing why we're doing something if we don't know that we're even doing it in the first place. So coming back to those first steps, nipping it in the bud by purely holding space with a bit of empathy and a bit of compassion this week. Transformation doesn't have to be hard, and quite understandably there's a resistance to that because it goes against everything that we know. We see seasons change, we see, you know, our bodies age, we see things grow and die, we see people born, we see people pass on. These things naturally occur, and in our psyche there are a ever spinning phenomenon that just occur. However, our mind and our ego can make that very complicated, going down to why we may complicate that. If we want to get to the nub of not feeling good enough, take it back from work, take it back from relationships, take it back to the very thing. Change happens anyway. It's part of our natural progress just by being who we are. But how often do we force something? Where does that come from this week? Really, if you choose to, digging down further, getting to what may be hidden. It's the eclipse, right? Yes, there's a lot outside that's hidden. There's a lot outside we can focus on. There's a lot outside that can take us from where we are. Use that as an opportunity to see what that might be inside of you. It's the most empowering thing that you can do for yourself this week. Because then I'm looking at the cards, the Priestess of Light Oracle, because then and only then can we actually see the light, the transformation that is available in all of this. And it is available. The light is as available as the darkness and vice versa, because they're one and the same. So it feels like over the next few weeks, more surface level, superficial information isn't going to cut it anymore, and that's okay. Feel into that. Whether that's relationships, guidance, you know, repetitive messages. If you're feeling as if something is the same over and over and over, what's underneath it then? If you want something to be different, more sustainable, or more expressive of the soul, more alive, that involves more commitment into the process itself. Okay, so with that in mind, 14 minutes in, let's look at the energies this week and how to best navigate them. There's something here about depth, going further than we've ever gone as a species, going further than we've ever gone individually, and being mindful where we can just go off track there, going further than we've ever gone individually, and recognizing that any fear of rejection in doing so, what we're actually doing is rejecting parts of ourselves, and that's where it stems from. We are all Nine of Swords. We are all incredibly deep individuals, and that doesn't mean that has to be, and this is my own projection here, that doesn't mean that has to be heavy or, we are multifaceted human beings. Our stories are going to have layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, and we can go as far into them as we choose to go into them. But if we're finding this week that we're getting the same answers, maybe, just maybe, it's about going to the next layer. You know, we talk about downloads. What about the uploads? What information are we sending out there? What energy are we sending out there this week? Have we changed? Have we made the most of the wisdom that we are all receiving? And we're all receiving it in our own different ways. There is comparison there, and comparison is what is actually fueling the not being good enough. We're all here to do things differently. Really standing in that, acknowledging that. Only when we acknowledge what we're here to do in the way that we're here to do it can we change the environment to suit that. So yeah, being very mindful of that this week. There's no point trying to be something that we're not. We're not aligning then to all the things that we're here to achieve, or not even that we're here to achieve, because that kind of goes into the whole purpose thing, and I'm not a fan of that. I think being ourselves is what we're here to achieve, and one of the greatest achievements. You know, over one of the Delphi, I think it's, I can't remember who it was, but the biggest thing is to know ourselves, right? That's what we're actually here to achieve this week, and some aspects of that we may not like. We may not like. Being aware of that this week is going to be key, because it's only coming out in different ways. It's only coming out in different ways. An example, I have a so one of the really recognizing our strengths this week. So I have a really great way of just sharing my vulnerabilities on the screen and just being very open with that. Not that I don't acknowledge that they're not vulnerable for me, of course they are, but it's always been something that I'm willing to do. An example, I have a really big wound in regards to not being seen, not being respected or loved or whatever, and I can see how that has really come up for me this week in different certain situations. So being acutely aware of that, being acutely aware of what it is that's rising, because it's that that's calling us out. We have the death card here. It's that that's saying to us, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how successful you are, it doesn't matter how poor you are, it doesn't matter how much you do for others, it doesn't matter how much you beg or plead for attention, right, in front of this character. It's about standing in who we are and letting go of what we're not this week. So really, really, really recognizing where that wound comes from. I'm fully aware that that wound actually comes from me not wanting to listen to parts of myself, from me not respecting or acknowledging or appreciating myself. And yes, that's getting reflected externally, of course, but actually if it wasn't there internally, it wouldn't be triggering me. So this week, really, the choice is there. It's always a choice, but the opportunity is there to look at what is rising within us, not so we can berate ourselves or not feel good enough or heal or fix, but hold space and witness so that we can see what's underneath it. Because what's underneath that there for me is someone that knows their worth and that downplays that. Yeah, so being aware of that, and we don't have to do anything, just that awareness, and then we can go, oh yeah, okay, next, let's move on. And we do have that, I want to say, permission. We can give ourselves permission for it to be that easy. That doesn't mean it won't come back up again in a different situation to test us, of course. So we deal with that then. This week, being aware of where we may feel as if that isn't enough, that awareness isn't enough, that we have to do so much more to move forward, that we have to heal, that we have to bribe, that we have to be more light, that we have to be more self-serving. Actually, death is death, endings is endings, transformation is transformation. It's going to happen anyway. And as you can see from the death card there, there's a beautiful purity in that, in the white rose. Yeah, it is about standing behind the truth of how pure we are, not just in a spiritual sense of we are without sin, we are without darkness, but no, how pure we are on a multi-dimensional level in our experiences. Our rage is sacred, our emotions are sacred because they are from experiences and they are felt by us, and they're only as sacred as we allow them to be. Giving something a name to make it more palatable this week doesn't necessarily make it sacred. If we're saying our rage has to be sacred, then we're feeling ashamed of it. It doesn't need explanations. It's an emotion. Being acutely aware of the labels and identities and whether or not they're supporting us and this pure transformation that is available, or whether or not they're making them something bigger than they need to be, richer than they are. Sometimes we're just pissed off, and that's okay, right? Maybe they don't have to be so dramatic. Oh my God, this is really feeling into it this week is going to be key, because the change is there. The change is there, and it's always happening. Even within us, if we recognised on such a level how much we change just with our breath, yeah, taking in that fresh air and releasing all the toxins, all the carbon dioxide, all the excess, just by breathing. Think of all the involuntary changes that occur on their own, you know. Okay, so energies this week and how to best navigate them. So we do have the High Priestess at the bottom. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, there is a temptation to jump ahead and try and figure things out this week. And overall, we have the Judgment card here. It's because everything that's happening is continually asking us, or it may feel as if it's continually asking us to take things to the next level. How we embrace that is what's going to define how this week is going to be. So on the Judgment card, yes, there is a calling out there, but how we embrace the views, opinions, judgments we may have of that is what's going to make the difference. We can see this as hard work. We can see this healing, leveling up, downloads, or whatever, or we can see it as a shedding of something that isn't us anyway. And every time we level up, embracing more of our own truth. That is what's going to define how we see the grief that is actually occurring and has been occurring between the eclipses. So when we have an eclipse, when things are covered in darkness, we see things that we couldn't see before. And that can have an impact on how we view our relationships, how we view ourselves, how we view where we are in the world and the world itself. And that can make us grieve for what we wanted it to be. We can't accept something fully until we embrace it as it is, without our expectations and our views and our believed perceptions. And this week, that is what's coming to light. So we can either see it as, oh, that is not how I saw it, and actually I don't want that. Or we can, that's curious, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. The Priestess of Light Oracle, I can straight away go, whoa, no thank you very much. Or I can go, oh, actually, funny enough, we have the High Priestess at the bottom of the pack. Maybe there's an archetype within us all, you know, as we go into October, November time, that's asking us to look beyond the veil of how we see ourselves and each other. Yeah? Less personal, making it less personal this week is going to be key. That's not to say that it's not affecting you. Of course it affects us on an individual level, but we can either see that as the surface and go no further, or we can delve a bit deeper and see what's actually going on underneath it all. So on the Monday, and again, that comes down to how we choose to see it. No one's saying we dive into something we don't feel prepared to witness. So seeking out that support as and when you need it. On the Monday, it's the 8 of Cups, the 8 of Chalices. Now with this card, what I like is you get to see a different angle, and that's the beautiful thing with grief. You know, the 8 of Cups is about walking away from what no longer serves us. In the normal 8 of Cups, there's a great relief almost, walking away from that. In this Eight of Cups, yeah, he's walking away from celebration. He's walking away from joy. He's walking away from, actually, can't quite see that, what looked like might have been a good time. Yeah, and he's sad. He's sad to do that. So acknowledging that much as the endings and change can be what we want, can be what we've been striving towards, there's still an element of sadness there. Everything has a duality. So for every amount of joy we feel, there's still an element of sadness there of what we're letting go, and being compassionate with that. Celebrating the courage that it takes to acknowledge that. Gratitude is one of the greatest things that we can do to bring through change, to help with endings. And what that does is that opens our heart. Yeah, that opens our heart to the love that was there, the love that we have. And that can be, especially if we haven't allowed ourselves to be open to that, that can be not traumatic, but quite, yeah, intense this week, because we do later on have the Three of Swords. So holding space for that, holding space for the more that we receive, the more we acknowledge what we haven't received. And it's not about getting caught up in that, but it is about being aware of that so that we continue to receive, so that we continue to say, actually, that was my life back then and it was quite a struggle, so I'm going to do this because I don't want to feel that pain anymore. On the Tuesday, we then have the Fool card. So the first major arcana, other than the overalls and the underneath. Be aware on the Tuesday. It may feel like that's the first insight that we've had, the first breakthrough that we've had, but actually underneath the whole week, it's going to be there. And actually, even in our emotions, especially in our emotions and the things that call us out, whether we like it or not this week, are an opportunity for insight and to see things from a different perspective and take a different standpoint, a different view and a different journey as a result. On the Tuesday, that's going to become more clear in the more human level. There's frustration there on the Tuesday. There's a desire to whiz through things on the Tuesday. There's a need to balance. Remembering that the Fool card isn't just about taking the leap, it's about that sweet spot before you take the leap. It's about having patience and being in the presence of the unknown. There's a big difference between acting from a reaction, you know, not making those harsh decisions, and sitting with something, being aware, and then making an informed choice. That's what I hear on the Tuesday, informed choice. Don't rush. If you want something on a deeper level, something more sustainable, something that reflects the work that you've put in, then wait for the results to come back, particularly on the Tuesday. And that is where I'm starting to feel the first lot of pain down my ear. And it is down my left ear, it is down my feminine ear. So it is about trusting our intuition. And there may be things externally that almost attack our intuition, and that may be either other people or a reflection of our own beliefs attacking our intuition on the Tuesday. So being aware of that, being aware of how it feels, being aware of what you're listening to, rather than reacting on the Tuesday, is going to be key. Because in this card, what you can see is he's walking towards a volcano. Yeah, he's walking towards chaos. Ensuring you know what you're walking towards on the Tuesday in your actions is going to be pivotal. I want to keep saying the word key, and there is a lot of that this week. There is a lot of potential opening up by recognizing that it's us that does it, based on where we are, based on how deep we're willing to go. On the Wednesday, I wanted to jump ahead to the Thursday. So on the Wednesday, be mindful that we may feel as if we don't need the rest that we're being given on the Wednesday because it's the Four of Swords. But actually, it is an opportunity for others to catch up, for others to mourn what was as well. So in this card, it's the first time that you see the other side of the Four of Swords. And it isn't just about the person that's resting. It isn't just about the person that's involved at the centre of it. It isn't just about us. It's about other people as well. Taking a moment to say, okay, that you're not that person that I thought that you were. Okay, maybe that came from my expectations. Okay, maybe that came from my perceiving you from where I am, okay? And that can be for ourselves as well, okay? Maybe I'm not this person that wants to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe I assumed that's who I was because everyone in my family has done that before me, or, you know, it's how I was brought up or how things were always done. But on the Wednesday, there's an opportunity to really feel into how true that is and to be with the change that comes from acknowledging who we actually are and where we actually find ourselves, and allowing other people that too. Knowing that people are only ever going to see what they see from where they see it, and allowing them to mourn, especially if it isn't what they thought, ourselves included, on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, we have the Three of Swords. And with this pack in particular, there's almost a knee-jerk reaction. I want to jump in and go, but it's different. It's different on the Thursday, and it is different. But what's actually different about the card and about the energy is the perception. With this card, we still have three swords carved into the heart. We still have pain in the heart, heartbreak, loss, sorrow. We still have people walking away from that. They're walking away from the pain. They're walking down the hill. We still have storms in front of us. We still have a lot to be figured out on the Thursday. The difference is the perception. We're now behind it. Yeah, we're now behind that pain and what has been brought to light, what we have discovered, but also recognizing that we could be behind some of that pain too. We could be behind some of the heartache that we're experiencing or that others are experiencing, and taking responsibility for that. On the Friday, we then have the Queen of Pentacles, and what that does is that empowers us to be grounded in who we are, to look at what's actually in our lap, to look at the stories that we're sat upon, the narrative that we have carved for ourselves, and whether or not what we now hold is going to sustain us forward here. So on this card, you can see on her throne, she's giving away her wealth. She's giving away her wisdom. However, sat right next to that here is somebody begging. Are we giving freely of our emotions, of our vulnerability, of our human self, of who we are? Are we doing so on a level that demands we receive that back? Are we doing so on a level that is responsible for what we are receiving? How embodied in our worth, particularly with our femininity, our expression, our ability to create, are we? Are we expecting that to be reflected back in how many likes we get, or shares, or one for me, people that turn up to things that I offer? Yeah, is that reflecting our worth? That definitely triggers me. Of course that triggers me. And then that brings up these beautiful, well, they don't feel beautiful at the time, but these beautiful old wounds, so that I can see, have I grown? Has there been growth here? Or am I sat on that narrative? Have I carved my own path based on that narrative? Come the Friday, it's a great opportunity to really look at that. On the Saturday, well, we may not always like what we see, because we have the Four of Cups here, and it's almost like turning our back. Turning our back on it all, not wanting to see any of it, but also stepping away from it, recognizing with the Three of Cups what actually sustained us may not, acknowledging that we are looking for something else, but even that right now, wanting a break from that, so that we can focus. You can see Pegasus here in the background. We can focus on the messages, the winged connection that's good, or the connection that's going to give us wings, that's going to help move us forward, that's going to spur us on, that's going to inspire us. This can be a judgment calling this week, or it can be an inspiration. It's entirely how we choose to perceive that and what we choose to look at this week. You know, you can see this character is just with the past, that's it, done. I don't actually want to see what's going on here. I don't want to feel this. Yeah, so really coming down to our own perspectives this week and what we're willing to witness, acknowledge, and be truthful with. On the Sunday, we have the Four of Pentacles, and you can't see here what this character is holding on to. You know, in the other tarot cards, you can see that he's holding on to pentacles and that they're under his feet. And, you know, it's the physical, physical, physical. It's all about the physical. But you can't actually see here. All you can see is that the crown chakra and the crown is linked to the element of earth. Whatever this is all about. And it is going to be different for everybody. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship that triggers you, or if it's a job that brings something up, or if it's my video in this face, whatever. Underneath it all, this is about our crown connection to our worth, our physical worth, our body. You can talk about, or we can talk about, you know, repressing the feminine, whether it's outside in the patriarchy or whether it's whatever's going on in the world. But internally, if we cannot connect to our physical body and what we're feeling, that is the feminine. That is the consort to the soul, the consort to the masculine or to the spirit. If we cannot connect on a higher level to our physical body, the rest is just information, potential with nowhere to go. And we're just going to see those mountains, those hills, those blocks in front of us. So overall, underneath it all is the High Priestess. And I will pull a card from the Oracle deck. The High Priestess, an opportunity to look at the wisdom that comes from connecting to the seeds of our own potential with the pomegranate here. Really looking at what is in front of us, but acknowledging what is in front of us is a veil of illusion to what is actually going on within. And taking responsibility for that. It takes great courage to have responsibility for the fact that, like this deck to the side of me, we are all oracles. We all have the ability to tune into what is going on and to feel and to act responsibly or accordingly to whatever is going on. And as a result, we then create our own future. So I was going to add to an extent, and no, that feels like a cop-out this week. If you feel something, if you react in a certain way and you see the outcome of that, you are creating your own future. So taking responsibility for that this week, recognizing that the veil between who we are, who we want to be, and who we see ourselves as is actually what needs to be brought down a little bit, brought down a peg or two this week. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 major arcanas, the High Priestess, Judgment, and the Fool. It is a wonderful opportunity to, as I said before, really see what's going on, to allow these things to call us out, to look at how we perceive that. Is it more growth? Is it something we've done wrong? Are we not good enough? Or is it, wow, look at the pure version of ourselves under here that's trying to come through, okay, that's desperately trying to come through to start that new journey. We then have 1, 2, the human self wants to rush through it. Yeah, the human self wants to rush through the process. However, the one element we don't have this week is the Wand cards. We have no spiritual energy this week, no ambition, no drive, and acknowledging that it is based on our physical experiences, our mind and our emotion this week that we will actually move through this, that becomes the spirit that drives us, our connection to the higher planes of potential and existence as well this week. So we have 2 cup cards, 2 sword cards, 2 pentacle cards. We have a beautiful balance and union here, provided we can let go of what once brought us emotional fulfillment. Provided we can move on with a heart of gratitude for things that have happened. It's not about saying they weren't enough. It's about saying this is what I now need emotionally in order to sustain my needs, in order to connect to the path upon which I'm walking. This is what I now require on an emotional level. We then have 2 sword cards, the 4 of swords and the 3 of swords, and it's important to recognize that that's the order they came in. So we don't have to have the heartbreak in order to stop and rest. We don't have to tear things down in order for people to be true in what they thought they could see or what they were expecting. This week it's about flipping that narrative and taking a moment. What did I expect? What am I hoping to gain? What do I actually need mentally here? Allowing our thoughts, rather than run ahead to worst case scenarios, to bring forth what it is we would like. You know, we can focus on the worst case scenario or use our imagination for something that we would like. And this week that potential is there. Ultimately, it doesn't matter which way we do it, but we are going to see that our mind can either heal or cause the pain, and to take responsibility for that. And that can be a bit of a finding some time and some space to do that. Forgiveness and compassion for the self, first and foremost. And then on a physical level, it is about connecting to our ability to nurture our physical worth. From there, we are going to let go of anything that doesn't stand in the way of that. We are going to release anything that we thought portrayed our worth. And whatever is then in front of us is going to become clearer. So based on that, we're 40 minutes in. It's going to go quick this week. It's going to be one of those weeks at the end of it we're like, oh my gosh. Even more reason not to rush it. It's shifting already. Okay, so these cards are new. They're called the Priestess of Light Oracle. They're from Sandra Ann Taylor and Kimberly Weber. Now we have the Divine Mother at the bottom of the pack. I picked up the most beautiful statue yesterday at Car Boots Out, and it's, I don't know, you won't be able to see it from where you are, but it's Mother Mary and child, and it looks as if it's wood, but it's actually pottery. And it feels quite important this week to recognise things may not be as we had assumed they would be. The material may be different from what we expected, but the outcome is still the same. It's still about the Divine Mother. It's still about our ability to nurture the growth that is occurring or has occurred or that we want to occur. It's always been about that. Okay, so I've actually picked two. Oh, we've come back to the Divine Mother. Who happens to be wearing purple, right? There's that violet flame. Acknowledging that one of the biggest, we have healing earth underneath, the power to give and receive healing. The biggest transformation is our ability to nurture something. Yeah, and that can be negative and positive. Are we nurturing the worst case scenario? Are we nurturing ourselves to go through whatever it is we're going through? What do we actually need? What is the most motherly thing we could do for ourselves? Because yes, that may bring up some wounds in regards to the mother, the earth, you know, that's definitely what mine are, with the not feeling seen or whatever. That may bring up some of the wounds there, but it's up to us to provide what we didn't have, particularly as adults. So we have hidden knowledge, the Akashic records, and silent understanding. So again, taking that moment to be still, to be silent. And this, I will look at what these say, but this reminds me of the realm, you know, when the veil's really thin, particularly this time of year. Everything has a sheen, a glimmer over it for those that can take the moment to see it. Oh, my screen just flashed. Everything has a hidden beauty for those that can take a moment just to be more aware of that and to see that, ourselves included. And the more time and space we can make for that this week, the more we're going to tap into some hidden wisdom there, some more silent understanding in the knowing that it isn't just mental understanding, it's full-bodied understanding in regards to, it says here Akashic records, but I like to think in regards to the stories that we are carving out or have had carved out for us, and only then can we kind of flip the page or change the narrative. Next to that, we then have brilliant beliefs, luminous life force, and personal power. And that really does, so it's almost like that one looks like it's the potential. It's like drawn out, carved out, it's there in the veil. And this one almost looks like it's the fully embodied, coloured in, more physical version of that. Yeah, so taking that hidden knowledge and applying it to where we are so that it can become a belief. Yeah, it can become our story, our truth, what we align to. And when we do that, that's that luminous life force. That's where we step into our personal power, not just as oracles, but as creators. Okay, so it's one thing to be able to feel into the future and read that, and another to then put steps in place. Some things are unchangeable, but some things we are made aware of because we're given an opportunity to say, you're collaborating with me from the universe. What should we tweak here? What should we change here? So it's not about feeling these things this week and beating ourselves up or berating ourselves, but moreover going, okay, this isn't working for me. And the universe going, okay, so what should we tweak here? If this stays this way, this is going to happen. Okay, so what can I tweak here? taking then that hidden connection between you and the earth, you and the divine mother within, the ability to create and to nurture and gestate and deliver what it is you want to the next level, rather than what I get is based on how other people see me. What I get is based on how I see me, and that's that personal power. So let's have a little look in the book as well. That feels quite nice. It feels nice to go with what we feel this week, but then also seek confirmation after if that's going to strengthen our resolve. So one thing I completely missed out, because I assumed it was obvious and it may not be obvious, is the Divine Mother is obviously to do with self-care. Yeah, I did say it's time to become your own loving mother, but to do with self-care. And you know, the wound that I actually have with the Divine Mother and with my own mother is that lack of self-care and trying to change that ancestrally. So being aware that sometimes the things that we didn't get, or the things that are triggering us, or our wounds, are an opportunity to heal ancestrally as well, to change the narrative, not just for us, but yeah, the feminine line this week as we're going into October and Halloween and Day of the Dead. And yeah, our ancestors are so close, calling upon them for support and for help also. It's never dishonouring to others when you truly honour yourself. There may be someone who needs some care and compassion from you as well. Can talk about parenthood and family. So what I'm going to add from the Divine Mother here is a beautiful affirmation. I choose to increase the tender feelings in my life. As I bring loving care to myself, I expand the energy of love into the world. Then brilliant beliefs and hidden knowledge. And when I feel into that, there's that's the resistance. That's the, you know, we can talk a good talk about self-care and authentically being who we are in order to help others. There's still resistance there that hasn't been embodied for many. So feeling into that this week, where are we not quite in balance with what we're saying and what we're doing? Because the most nurturing thing in our life is to walk our talk. Sometimes that isn't always what other people want to see, but if we don't do that, then we start to become what we don't want to see, and that's the option this week. Okay, brilliant beliefs, 45. No, we'll go for hidden knowledge first because that came first. Acknowledging this week what comes first. Are we acting from our beliefs, or are we acting from insight that kind of just came out of nowhere? Talking about sitting in silence. Okay, again, I'm just going to go for the affirmations because that's everything we've mentioned. I am blessed with intuitive wisdom. I receive helpful insight from the Akashic records whenever I may need it. We have to make time for that. And then brilliant beliefs, 45. Okay, I'm going to read this part. My whole throat wanted to close over then. This priestess is telling you that, like her, you can project a brilliant life force energy out into the world. Her heart center shines with the light of her divine origins. The glow of her true identity encircles her head and emanates brightly from her brow and crown chakras. Yet she is no more powerful than you, for you have come from the same luminous source. So few people are taught to believe this truth about themselves. They believe that they are not enough, not deserving, or not capable of making their dreams come true. But these conclusions project a dark energy that brings unhappiness and blocks goals and desires from manifesting. This card is asking you to embrace your luminosity and to remember your oneness with Source. It is this oneness that forges your truth and helps you heal your old hurts and misinformed beliefs. Even if lies about your lack of power and value have been with you for a long time, it's never too late to awaken to your truth and let yourself shine. This is a time of renewed energy for you, and the snow leopards are signaling that you have the personal power to overcome your inner demons. In fact, you are now capable of making giant leaps in reversing these toxic mental patterns. When you do, your brilliant new beliefs will manifest a wonderful new reality, one that will match the resonance of your own luminous life force. The affirmation is, I choose to believe in my unlimited power, value, and deserving. My life force shines with the light of my divine source. Now, throughout that, at some points, there was a bit of confusion going on with my mind because I was seeing a lot of different images of, yes, we are in the Leo year, the strength year, and we can get very caught up with that being about lions, or indeed Leos. What I kept seeing was lynx and different big cats. And then I saw even the most domesticated cat, my own cat. Underneath it all, regardless of the level of domesticity we may find ourselves in, and by that what I mean is the level of Salka that we now no longer show, the level of our light that we are no longer connected to, regardless the amount of wild we've allowed ourselves to feel, it's still there. It's still the life force within us. And this week we're being really given the opportunity to connect to that if we so wish. It's all a choice at the end of the day. And that in itself can be the biggest veil that will be lifted post eclipse. So be prepared for anything that has been feeding that inability to see to rise beforehand. I'll see you next week on the other side as we prepare for the 1010 portal. Take care.